The Chinese economy sure has a lot on its plate lately. China's birth rate has substantially decreased recently, raising questions about its demographic destiny and the possible economic, social, and geopolitical repercussions of a declining population. In this video, we'll examine the elements that led to this demographic change, including social and cultural shifts, governmental initiatives, and economic circumstances. You are therefore in the ideal place if you have any interest in Chinese politics, demography, or are simply curious about this intriguing subject. Let's get into it. The birth and mortality rates in China during the past 60 years are depicted in this graph. Birth rates are high for the majority, but in 2022, China's population fell for the first time in 6 decades as a result of more deaths than births. Consider this to see why it's such a significant deal. Because of its enormous population, China is the world's manufacturing superpower. Manufacturing accounts for around 30% of the nation's economic output. Here is a chart of China's population during the previous 60 years. Its population of 1.4 billion people is still roughly as large as it has ever been, despite losing almost 1 million individuals in 2022. By the end of the century, however, that is expected to decrease by almost half. China's population has been decreasing over the years as a result of its expansion and policies. It is presently trying to change its course in order to maintain its population. Unfortunately, it might already be too late. Under Mao, China went through one of its worst famines ever in the 1950s. Deaths totaled 30 million. The death and birth rate chart shows a significant increase in mortality if we look at that. The population shrank at the same time that the birth rate fell. However, there was a baby boom that followed the big crisis, as is frequently the case with wars, famines, and other tragedies. In addition to improvements in world medicine that reduced infant death rates, the average Chinese family now had 6 children. The administration considered the skyrocketing birth rate to be a serious issue. The Chinese government recognized that the population was expanding too quickly and that action needed to be taken. The administration unveiled a new policy. Later, longer, fewer was the name given to the trend in later marriages, longer birth spacing, and fewer babies. As a result, China's birth rate began to decline, but the country's leaders felt like it wasn't low enough. The draconian one-child policy, which restricted families to having just one child, was also put into effect in 1980. This policy had further support and was executed by very harsh means. There were induced abortions, IUD insertions, and sterilization efforts. These programs were at their worst during the one-child policy, when China sterilized 20 million men and women and instigated approximately 15 million abortions in a single year, despite the fact that they were started during the later, longer, fewer era. But China had succeeded in its objective. Population expansion was being managed. However, China would soon see that these stringent regulations were perhaps a little too effective. Any population must have an average of 2.1 children per couple in order to maintain its size throughout time. The replacement rate is what we refer to as the notion that 0.1 makes up for children that pass away before they reach adulthood and that one child replaces one parent. But for more than over 3 decades, China's fertility rate has been significantly below 2. To mention that, China ultimately abandoned the one-child policy in 2016, and in 2021, after a brief experiment with a 3-child limit, they eventually allowed families to have as many children as they wished. It hasn't though. The particular family structure that the one-child policy creates is a significant factor. We are looking at the family structure known as 4-2-1, in which a pair has 4 parents above them and 1 child below. Most nations have a variety of family patterns, some with 3 children and others without any. Millions of only children, however, are under increasing pressure to care for their aging parents and elderly grandparents as a result of China's 4-2-1 model. And this can make raising numerous children more difficult, especially now that living expenses are increasing. According to a recent survey, more than 50% of young individuals don't desire more than 1 child due to financial and employment demands. We have observed financial support in the form of kindergarten subsidies, cash subsidies for more births, and longer maternal leaves. The truth is that very few of them have succeeded since a child is extremely expensive and requires a lifetime commitment. It is, therefore, very difficult to assign a monetary value to this. However, the demographic crisis in China is not simply about newborns. In addition, the harmony between young and old is important. A country with rapid population growth, such as Kenya, has a population pyramid that is wide at the bottom, signifying a large influx of new young people and thin at the top. Philippines, like nations with slower growth, are still triangular, but there is less of a distinction between the top and bottom. Now, look at China. You'll see it has a narrow bottom and fewer babies, and a heavy top, a greater proportion of senior citizens, which is a positive result of our improved health and standard of living. But when combined with persistently low fertility, the result is persistent population aging. This is how the pyramid is predicted to look in 2050, and that will further reduce China's population, reduce its labor force, and place the entire nation in an exceptionally challenging situation. China became a hub for cheap manufacturing and exports in the 1980s. A generation later, it was climbing the economic ladder quickly and was one of the largest and fastest growing economies by GDP. However, the economic modernization not only resulted in additional declines in birth rates, it also did not result in a more prosperous economy for all. The best measure of living standards that we have is GDP per capita. China has a far lower income than these developed nations. Despite almost overnight economic growth, China is still a middle-income nation. Many people, particularly those living in rural regions, have not reaped the benefits of China's economic expansion, and the country has not yet created the safety nets required to care for its aging population. To create the social infrastructure, such as the social programs for retirement and healthcare, it requires time. And with a deteriorating economy, that is actually becoming more difficult. Furthermore, a weaker economy will ultimately change China's status as a global manufacturing superpower. This implies that China's ambition and its ability to reach out to the rest of the globe would be constrained by internal resource limits. In certain respects, China is not unique. Numerous nations in Asia and Europe are also seeing population reductions. China stands out because of how quickly things have changed there. China only began utilizing its rapidly expanding population to transform into an economic superpower 40 years ago, all the while attempting to slow down population growth. China may need to reconsider its future, not just as a world superpower, but also for its residents at home, now that its population growth has officially ended. What are your thoughts on the issues the Chinese economy is currently facing?
China has always been known for its massive population size. It's home to 1.41 billion people. That means nearly 1 out of every 5 human beings on Earth lives in China.
Boost its comparative advantage in manufacturing goods for the rest of the world.
Consequently, your prices of your iPhones, the prices. So from the domestic perspective, the real estate market, which was booming for the last 30 years, your first generation of
Payers shrinks. So lower amount of taxpayers indicate a lower tax revenue and then higher government expenditure.
Do let us know in the comments below. With that, we've reached the end of the video. Thank you for hanging in there till the end. If you've liked this video, do give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to smash the subscribe button and turn on notifications for more exciting content. We'll see you in the next video.